Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Rochester. We're so glad you're here this morning. Ours is a church of open minds and loving hearts, celebrating many sources of wisdom, many spiritual paths, and many identities, all of which help us live lives of meaning and service, justice, and love. We've been nurturing spirituality and practicing justice in Rochester since 1866. We extend a special welcome to newcomers and visitors. We're glad you're here. If you have questions about the church or would like to learn how to get more involved or consider becoming a member, you can speak with Melissa Egler, our coordinator of congregational life, or speak with me or anyone after the service. Most importantly, know that you are welcome here. Your faith, your doubts, your questions, your identity. You may notice the sanctuary looks a little bit different this morning. This week we started minor renovation, closing off that side door in preparation for a L-shaped ramp that will be added to the chancel to make our chancel accessible. That'll be happening this coming week or the week after. Our banners came down this week to stay clean during the process as they were cutting some of that out so they didn't get too dusty, and they will go back up, don't worry. And we are glad for this project to express our values of inclusion and for all who help make it happen. And every Wednesday, including this week, join us for a dinner and a forum. This week's forum is a conversation with Dan Fifield, co-founder of The Landing, which is a local nonprofit in Rochester providing support and resources for people experiencing homelessness. Come for a conversation at 6:15, dinner's at 5:30, and all are welcome. There's opportunities for children, youth, and nursery care as well. Also, if you've been watching and received the e-news in your inbox, you can see information about supporting our youth group by signing up to help in a variety of ways for the 5K at the end of March. You've missed the early bird registration. You're still in line for the middle bird registration before the late bird registration. So you're still in that middle range. But if you're able to help sign up to run or walk or roll or volunteer or however you'll be able to participate, all are welcome. And after service, join us for conversation downstairs in the Commons, as well as our UU holiday Valentine tea. So all are welcome to that as well. And in a moment, our opening hymn will call us back together. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit and greet those around you.
Of art, architecture, and cultural resilience. When the last of the wooden support structures were removed in 1566, engineer Memere Hayreddin felt a little more than a little sense of relief. The bridge held. It wasn't so much about deadlines, possibility of a future job, worker overtime, or even some form of government regulations that was his concern. The fact was that a number of bridges had failed previously, and the Ottoman Sultan vowed to execute the engineer if this bridge met the fate of the others. It wasn't a very large bridge. It was only a footbridge, but the beauty of its single elegant arch and connected structures rose gracefully over the Neretva River in Mostar, in what is now the country of Herzegovina. A classic example of Ottoman design from the 15th century. The bridge connected Muslim communities in the east with Christian communities in the west, and came to symbolize the multi-ethnicity of Bosnia. Not only did this bridge survive its grand opening, but also every day for the next 429 years, despite the two world wars. And interestingly, one of war's main objectives, besides the taking of human life, is to sever connections, and the bridge was destroyed by tank fire during the Bosnian War. This symbolic bridge and its connection between cultures was lost. Now, a bridge can almost always be rebuilt or at least replaced, but symbolism is born of art and rooted in culture and community. For this bridge to become the symbol it once was meant that the bridge and related structures would be recreated using the original methods and material. Stone for the parapet walls and the arch, and oolitic limestone that starts out ivory but turns gray over time, came from the same quarry mined for the original bridge. Other stones were lifted from the river where they fell. Traditional lime mortar was used, and the metal, forged iron and lead. Breccia, a rock composed of broken fragments of minerals that become cemented through time, was used for the abutment walls, a rock symbolic enough in itself, while the walkway was of a marble-like limestone. The bridge, long a symbol of connection, was reconnected again as a symbol and could now add healing and resilience to its claim to fame. UNESCO, the World Cultural Heritage Organization, added the bridge to their World Heritage List in 2005, saying, "The old bridge area, with its pre-Ottoman, Eastern Ottoman, Mediterranean, and Western European architectural features, is an outstanding example of a multicultural urban settlement. The reconstructed Old Bridge and Old City of Mostar is a symbol of reconciliation, international cooperation, and of the coexistence of diverse cultural, ethnic, and religious communities." We light this chalice this morning with these words: "This is the light of truth, the warmth of compassion, and a beacon of hope, to shine in the beauty and the brokenness of the world, calling us to practice inclusion, justice, and love. May their strength be our strength. May their resolve be our resolve." Believe, Believe by Bob Kaufman. Believe in this: young apple seeds in blue skies, radiating young breasts, not in blue-suited insects infesting society's garments. Believe in the swinging sounds of jazz, tearing the night into intricate shreds, putting it back together again in cool, logical patterns, not in the sick controllers who created only the bomb. Let the voices of dead poets ring louder in your ears than the screechings mouthed in mildewed editorials. Listen to the music of centuries rising above the mushroom time. A Map to the Next World by Joy Harjo. In the last days of the fourth world, I wish to make a map for those who would climb through the hole in the sky. My only tools were the desires of humans as they emerged from the killing fields, from the bedrooms and the kitchens. For the soul is a wanderer with many hands and feet. The map must be of sand and can't be read by ordinary light. It must carry fire to the next tribal town for renewal of spirit. In the legend are instructions and cant on the language of the land. How it was we forgot to acknowledge the gift, as if we were not in it or of it. Take note of the proliferation of supermarkets and malls, the altars of money. They best describe the detour from grace. Flowers of rage spring up in the depression. Monsters are born there of nuclear anger. Trees of ashes wave goodbye to goodbye, and the map appears to disappear. We no longer know the names of birds here, how to speak to them by their personal names. Once we knew everything in this lush promise. What I'm telling you is real and is printed in the warning on the map. An imperfect map will have to do, little one. The place of entry is a sea of your mother's blood. your father's small death as he longs to know himself in another. There is no exit. You will travel through the membrane of death, smell cooking from the encampment where our relatives make a feast of deer meat and corn soup in the Milky Way. They've never left us. We abandoned them for science. And when you take your next breath, as we enter the fifth world, there will be no X, no guidebook with words you can carry. You will have to navigate by your mother's voice, renew the song she is singing. Fresh courage glimmers from planets and lights the map printed with the blood of history. A map you will have to know by your intention, by the language of the suns. Remember the hole of shame marking the act of abandoning our tribal grounds. We were never perfect, yet the journey we make together is perfect on this earth, who was once a star and made the same mistakes as humans. We might make them again, she said. Crucial to finding the way is this: there is no beginning or end, and you must make your own map.
If I can't dance, then I don't want to be part of your revolution, said activist Emma Goldman. Well, she didn't say that exactly, it turns out. Maybe you knew that, but the sentiment was hers. It's a fun story about the origin of that phrase, that if you can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. This is what she wrote in her 1939 autobiography. She said, "At dances, I was one of the most untiring and joyful. But one evening, a young boy took me aside with a grave face as if he were about to announce the death of a dear comrade, and he whispered to me that it did not behoove an agitator to dance. Certainly not with such reckless abandon as I was, anyway, he thought. It was undignified, he said, for one who was on the way to become a force in this revolution movement. My frivolity would only hurt the cause, he insisted. I grew furious at the interference of this boy. I told him to mind his own business. I was tired of having the cause constantly thrown in my face. I did not believe that a cause which stood for a beautiful ideal, for the release and freedom from conventions and prejudice, should demand the denial of life and of joy." That's right, Emma Goldman. For centuries, passed down by generations, we know that good movements for change and for justice and transformation that are resilient and life-giving are filled with artistry and beauty and song and poetry and joy. Yes, it is serious work too, and sometimes it comes with indignation and angst and fierceness, and sometimes it comes with the need to express and live the experience of the very values you're working to create, that you're hoping to embody, that the work for a more beautiful world has to be beautiful and joyful itself. To remember that drudgery and dreariness typically don't change the world for the better. Not too long ago, a young child that I know, while listening to a very fun song, said, "Do you like this music?" "Yes," I replied. Confused, she said, "Then why don't you dance to it?" Fair enough. I felt like getting into, Scandinavian Lutherans are really known for their sick moves on the dance floor, but, I should take the point. And she begged the question that if you like this music, whatever music that embodies and expresses your deepest hopes for the world, your deepest values, your highest aspirations for humanity, whatever music, whatever rhythm is in those stories and songs and movements that you believe in of inclusion and justice and equity and hope, then how are you dancing? How are you connecting the rhythm of your heart to the rhythm of those values of justice and love? Or as another person that I love will respond to me sometimes when I like to overanalyze or process things ad nauseum about the world or religion or church or whatever and just keep talking and talking about them. My soul seems to be saying the song title, "Say Something, I'm Giving Up on You." Their soul seems to respond with the song title, "Shut Up and Dance with Me." Or in other words, maybe stop spinning your wheels in analysis alone and all the time. Or just verbal expression. Do something, some action, some embodiment, some concrete expression of your values in the world with joy and with rhythm and hope. Just shut up and dance. The music keeps playing somehow across generations. Sometimes, and especially in the most dire circumstances, the most harsh social contexts, is where some of the most beautiful artistry, the most creative expressions of humanity in word, in print, in paint, in song, come alive. Throughout history, the most prophetic and poignant works of art come out of a context where people are required to demand and own and defend and proclaim their humanity, their inherent dignity, their inherent divinity, that they are sacred. It's like the old song, born of those held in slavery, whose humanity was being systematically assaulted all the time, and it still is in many ways. There's this connection to this old song, a theological equivalent to the tradition of universalism, the teaching that in our tradition, every person, no matter who they are, race, class, gender, ethnicity, was beloved of God, was the universalist teaching. Or a new language, inherent worth and dignity belongs to everyone. So the old song would take that question that brown and black-skinned people are still asked today. Who are you? What are you doing here? Is this where you belong? Is this your neighborhood? Is this your country? And the old song says, when you're asked that question, sing this. If anybody asks you who you are, who you are, who you are. If anybody asks you who you are, you tell them you're a child of God. A child of God, or a child of earth and sky and the universe, sacred, beloved, is the answer to anyone who questions who you are. That's still our faith in many ways, with many more words or beliefs or expressions of it around it, but we still believe that each of us are sacred, that there's something sacred protected at the core of each person. And that's not easy much of the time still to believe it, because it demands we believe it about ourselves and we believe it about humanity, which the news cycle would say isn't too easy to believe. To believe it enough and act accordingly, because it requires us to build a world that honors people's inherent dignity and divinity. It's like the imagery that's been woven into songs over centuries and generations, like the sounds of spirituals or jazz and the blues, born of the experience of oppressed humanity that refuse to have their soul be defined by hatred. We make our own maps. Most of the time, we piece together scraps of our histories as much as we know. We piece together scraps of our humanity as much as we're left with, knowing that it was never perfect, and it still isn't. But we piece it together and make whatever signals to others that we can to say there is safe passage here. The generations have made a path with these skills and these tools to be who you are. There's safe passage here. Those places that have been forged by ancestors and protected by generations with story and art and song so that the conditions of resilience are more possible. People who planted seeds generations and generations ago that have made it safe to be who you are. And if we're lucky, it opens a place of compassion within all of us to extend that to someone else. We are always creating the world, making our own maps all the time. And this is what we've learned to do. We've listened to the generations for their wisdom, if we're doing it right, who have said, here are the skills you will need to survive, and there are new ones you'll have to find on your own, because you are strong. And when you feel weak, remember the tools we've given you. the paths that we started, because those are yours now to travel. I invite you, as you're comfortable, to join a hand next to you or place your hand on your heart and breathe deep the breath of life. Though the way be steep and rugged, if I stumble, will you help me? May that answer always be yes. Amen.